Hi guys, and welcome back to Fairy Tale Thoughts. Today we're going to be doing a chapter review of chapter 5 to 6. Some controversy coming from this chapter. Not from the fight itself, funny enough, but from some questions that have arose, let's say.
Fight, I will argue, was actually pretty smart, all things considered, about August's magic.
Yes, I did like that quite a bit.
Because it makes sense.
If you guys can't already tell, I have Eric with me. The channel has been dead for about 2 months, so maybe you've forgotten who we are. But it does say on the screen.
I don't think they would have forgotten who you are, Taylor. I'm pretty forgettable, though.
Am I that charismatic, Eric? Is that?
Yep.
Anyway, what's important is that we discuss what's gone on today in this chapter. So we're gonna start off with basically the main chunk of the fight. We'll go on later on where we have to theorize and try and answer these questions that have been laid out for us, but for now let's talk about the fight between August and Gildarts. I thought it was a pretty decent fight.
Agreed.
I was questioning a few chapters ago, why is Kana here? Why is she getting involved? She's gonna get her daddy killed. But, in the end, there was a reason for it. There was a reason why she was there. People were asking questions like, oh wait there, so why is August just standing there taking fairy glitter, but when some cards come flying towards him, he dives out of the way like his life depending on it. And people thought that was like
just an
inconsistency? An inconsistency basically. It was Hero's fault, but nope, that all played into the finale of the fight. This built up from, I'd say, about 8 or so chapters ago, where they basically have been having this knockout brawl, and it's now finally concluded on here. So, what do you think, Eric? Come on.
I thought it was a very clever way to first explain how August's magic actually works, because it's been very vague up until this point. He's known as the mage that seemingly knows all magic, but one interesting thing is he's not an instigator most of the time. He mostly just counteracts other people's magic when they attack him, like when he was fighting Jalal and the redeemed Irration says.
Yeah, you notice that he never makes the first move,
right?
Which
plays into here because Gildarts kind of broke down that the main crux of his magic is 2 parts. One is that he has the ability to nullify pretty much all magic, and then he ostensibly, it's like the Sharingan. He kind of absorbs copies and then reprojects that magic. That's how he learns it, from what I understand. Yeah. And go on.
From what Gildarts said is that the fact that he can copy this magic and use it therefore gives him the ability to nullify it. So it's whether he actually has nullification magic, which he could easily do, and that, or whether it's just a poor translation that I've read. Because if it is that, yes, if it is just that, oh, I have this sort of magic, you also have this sort of magic, so it's like they smash together and there's no reaction because it nullifies it. That's not really the case, because we've seen, ice mages up against ice mages, and they can be hurt by the ice magic. It's not like that it gets nullified. Whether this is a special technique that August has, or what I'm leaning towards is that, like you said, he actually has nullification magic, which would make sense.
It would, but actually, like, you kind of hit on another point. Maybe it's just a matter of he's so good at adapting to other people's magic. It's kind of like where when you reverse engineer something down to its basic levels, after he learns it, he can then break it down and figure out how to dispel it.
Yeah.
So like you said,
no, that actually
dispelling plays a part into him learning and copying the magic. It's not a separate thing.
Yeah. So it's how essentially where how magicians can, like, wizards in the series can break down elements. So with how Natu breaks down fire, it's him. He knows the elements of fire. He can break it down and absorb it. It's the same with all the elemental type wizards. So dragon slayers, god slayers, ice mages, stuff like that, where they can break down the element. But in August's case, I'm assuming he literally just breaks down the magic itself because he's learned the crux of it inside and out. And if you're asking, well, how does he do that within the space of 10 seconds from copying this magic? We find out in this chapter that August is a prodigy of learning magic in general. He was born with so much magic power that he had memories from the day he was born of people that he had never even met, which is crazy, and we'll go into more later. But if you're questioning, like, oh, well, how could August do that? That's no way he could do that. August is top tier when it comes to learning magic, breaking down magic, and executing it. It's quite simple.
Mm-hmm. And it was, and then that plays a part into why he keeps dodging Kana's magic, because she uses equipment-based magic. She
holder magic.
Holder magic
does. Yeah.
Where she instills her magic power into objects and uses those objects to attack, the same way that Lucy uses her celestial keys to summon the zodiac spirits.
Mm-hmm.
And that makes sense, because even if you break down the magic itself, you can't use it without that particular item or artifact.
Yeah.
Which is why he can't break down, or even if he could break it down, he's still going to get hit by that magical item. So it makes sense why he's dodging Kana's cards, but like you said, he can reassemble himself after being broken down. He can easily take Gildarts' crash magic, which is probably one of the most OP things in this entire show.
Well, after we met the Spriggan, there's a lot of hacks magic in the series. But before that point, Gildarts was top tier. He was the guy with, like, the hacks magic, where you just didn't want to fuck with him, because if he took you seriously,
you're fucked.
He would one shot you, almost anyone, which is quite funny. But yeah,
it's actually interesting to see him legitimately fight now, because
we've never actually seen him gone all out. And there was the stuff with Blue Note Stinger back on Tenro Island,
right?
But that was when Fairy Tail was, like, severely crippled. So when the Tenro tree was brought down, it didn't just give away the bonuses the Fairy Tail had, but it started draining their magic power. And as soon as Gildarts got his magic power back, he literally one-shot Blue Note.
Yeah.
So it's like, this is the first time we've actually seen Gildarts go all out. It's nice. It's refreshing. And I want to say that I would have liked to have seen more of not just this fight, but more of Gildarts fighting. But this is a conversation we'll save for another time, because do you know how we once said, Eric, that the Grand Magic games had the most potential in terms of an arc, the most squandered potential in terms of an arc?
Yeah, those were the days.
This arc tops that tenfold in terms of what could have happened, what didn't happen, and changes and stuff like that. So don't you worry. Soon enough, we will have a very long discussion about everything in this arc and how we would change it and what should have done. Who knows? We may just go from the fucking start of the arc to the end of the arc, go from point to point to point to point, and say, this was stupid, this should have been changed, this was actually pretty good, this needs to be changed.
I'll draft a couple of beers. We need to just sit down and spend a couple hours doing
this. Dude, I could literally go on for hours about this arc. Positives and negatives. But that's not what we're discussing. We're discussing
we'll save that for
this
another
chapter.
time.
Yeah, we're discussing this chapter.
This chapter has enough things that make my brain hurt as they are.
Yeah, so we've covered everything with August Magic and how, it was a pretty good fight. In comparison to what we've had from this arc in terms of fights, it was pretty good. Seemingly all the Spriegans are down. Every single one of them. They're all down. All that's left is Zeref and Agnologia. So, Eric, how long do you think we have left?
Well, in the span of time that we've been on hiatus, actually literally maybe less than 2 weeks ago, the Fairy Tale movie was announced for, what was it, May 7th?
It's close to that, yeah. Either that date or close to that. I can't remember off the top of my head.
I'm deeply terrified that this arc will probably end around there. Because it looks like that film, continuity-wise, might actually take place after this arc.
It can't though. Okay, so people have talked about, and there's been people that make videos about it, and they've said, this takes place after the arc, and this is the actual climax to Fairy Tale. No, it isn't. Natsu doesn't have his scar that he got from Zeref. He's still wearing the bandage. As far as I know, this can't really take place anywhere in the continuity. Besides, where did we decide? Like, once they all get back to the guild, and before they finish building the guild and Mess shows up, there's that window of undisclosed time that something could happen.
True, but that means Makarov can't be in the movie.
True. And if that's the case, who knows? But Makarov, he can't be in the movie anyway if it takes place after the arc.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Oh, actually, you don't know. Actually, maybe he may come back. You don't know. He may come back. But I don't think this is. The movie itself is going to be the climax of the series. No way, because I still think there's more to come in terms of like END and the Dragon Seed, and I don't think that all ended there.
I really hope it did.
Zeref has a big plan that only Grey knows, and I still think it involves either the Dragon Slayers or Natsu. I'm holding out hope. Who knows? But I'm 100% sure that the movie itself will not be the climax of the series. What I am sure of, though, is that it's going to end very soon, either just after the movie, or maybe a little bit further down the line. Depends on how much Hiro wants to stretch out once this arc is finished.
Definitely not the end of summer.
I don't think it'd go that far. Because if you've noticed, Eric, at the start of these recent chapters, each cover page is Fairy Tale memories. And it's going through each individual arc, saying Fairy Tale Memories 1, Fairy Tale Memories 2. So, like, the first page was where Natsu and Lucy first met. The second one is when they went to the mansion where Lucy dressed up. So they're even doing the tiny mini arcs. So essentially, I'd say there's about maybe 20-25 more chapters. Because you have to go through each individual arc on this memory. And I'm assuming Hiro's going to wrap it up once he actually finishes, like, oh yeah, I've laid out all the arcs on the cover pages for you. Nice and neat. So, I don't think it's ending. You know what? It may end at the end of the summer. Who knows? But,
it's definitely not going past. It's definitely not going past August.
Ha ha ha! So, August is Mavis's kid, Eric.
Okay.
Would you believe that?
Do you want to start or should I?
Go for it.
Okay. No. I can't fathom this that well because, okay, ignoring Mavis's literal age, which is probably in her early to mid 20s, at the oldest, she's still physically 13 years old. She's like
Correct.
Just on the cusp of reaching puberty. So the fact that in general that she and Zeref, who... What is Zeref's, like, physical age? Like,
So the thing was, the curse of contradiction
makes him
with
immortal.
Zeref. Yeah, it makes him immortal. But
he stopped aging.
I've honestly forgotten. Maybe we've been told, but does this curse of contradiction also stop him aging? Well, clearly it stops him aging, but I mean, does it let him reach a certain peak and then he stops at that point? Because as far as I know, Zeref is definitely, he looks like an adult, but when that curse of contradiction first got introduced when he was studying that school, he still looked like a teenager.
That's true. But he doesn't look that old. I can't see him older than Natsu. Like, maybe 18, 19 at the oldest.
Yeah.
So maybe
It's so
around
weird.
that time he did stop aging and he just, I don't know, maybe looked more mature but didn't actually age. Because Mavis doesn't age and she has the same
only reason I'm
curse.
bringing this up is that did the same happen with... Because Precht clearly says that Mavis is a full-grown woman when she's in the crystal and when he's, like, talking about the baby. Now, clearly he's obviously mentioning her mental capabilities. Obviously, she's just an adult when you think of it. Like, okay, so mentally, yeah, she is an adult. But is he also mentioning her body? Because I'd like to throw some headcanon and say that, you know what, maybe for all we know, Mavis some did actually develop into adults and then she stopped aging from that point. But that's contradictory to so many points in the series. Unless he actually comes out and says it and explains why, it's very contradictory. So,
yep. We're dealing with our own curse of contradictory here.
We are.
It's one of those things that, first off, I'm kind of surprised that, because we mentioned this before we got into the call, Hero's writing has gotten a little edgy these past, 20 chapters.
Well, more inconsistent, more rushed.
Well, inconsistent, but I'm talking about the actual subject matter, because we go back to Irene's backstory.
Yes.
It's fucked up.
It's the most fucked up backstory out of everyone's.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. There's been implied torture and stuff like that throughout the series, but this was actually, shown. It was oh yeah, she talks about, I was tortured when I was held captive in this prison, and I was like, holy fuck, that was...
How her husband almost cut her stomach open to prove she wasn't pregnant.
Yeah, that was us.
And how it's implied she kind of ripped Urza out of her body to possess her, to get a new body. That's not stuff you expect to see in a shonen magazine, to be honest. There's also something... Correct me if I'm wrong, because I might have missed this. It wouldn't be the first time.
Go on.
When Zeref found Mavis, after she ran away from everybody because she was afraid of killing those that were close to her because she was cursed.
Because she
cursed.
fucking killed Yuri's wife. Yeah.
Yeah, Makarov's mother. Didn't she kind of fall into her coma almost immediately after Zeref found her?
They kissed, and that's what it was.
Yeah.
She fell into the coma after they kissed. As far as we know, that's what we've been led to believe, because the panel in which they kiss is a silhouette, and then in the next panel, where Mavis's body goes limp, they're in that exact same position. What Hero could have done is not have them in that same position, and then there could have been theories that silhouette, romantic, something happened in between this page and the next, and then maybe that's where you get away with it.
It sounds like he's retconning his own flashback then.
At this point it is, because it's either we're trying to retcon it, and we're trying to think of ways of how this actually happened and where this was placed. Or, worst case scenario, Zeref had sex with Mavis when she was in a comatose state. Which is the last thing I want to believe the hero would put in his manga series.
Telling you, man, the edge has been real. Who knows?
I really hope that's not the case. I just don't see a need for it. I didn't even belie that bullshit of like their love was so strong that like magically it was consummated or something like that. Oh, I don't want to hear that either. No, I don't want to be like, there was so much.
I would sooner want that than.
Oh, well, yeah, okay, I would. So.
Compare.
Yeah,
I know
yeah,
it's still bullshit, but it's like, if I just sit here and like pick the lesser of two evils, it's like, okay, I'll take the potential Disney style bullshit over the implied, really fucked up, you might have had sex with an underage girl while she was in a coma type of deal. Oh god, how is Mavis gonna react?
Does she know?
I don't think she knows, because why would she? Her spirit was bound to the island, it wasn't bound to Fairy Tale. So it's not like she could have been, even if she was like conscious and awake or projected herself, it wasn't at the guild. And it seemed like even Perch didn't know until after he was scanning Mavis's unconscious body. So
and then Prek somehow had to get her out of the crystal and get the baby out of her.
I said Perch.
And put Mavis back into the crystal. Because literally, in the two chapters, this chapter and the chapter before, we literally see Mavis in the crystal, Prek be like, oh no, there's life inside of her. Should I let it live or let it die? Let it live or let it die? That's all we see. And then the next chapter, you see Prek sat at the table, and there's a fucking baby next to him in a fucking basket with a blanket on. How Hero's gonna explain this, I don't fucking know. But he needs to, because a lot of the fans are paranoid at the moment, including me, in terms of how this actually went down. So,
I kind of feel bad for. Actually, it's funny that he kind of. I don't know if like you saw this ahead of time, but I didn't know that all this time August was talking, he was really talking about himself. And not Larry Caden.
Yeah, so that's what like people were like, well, why is August keep talking about?
Why does he care?
Yeah, like why does August care so much about Larcade not being loved? Because under everyone's impressions, it's like, why is the Majesty's son not being loved? It's like, oh, well, you're talking about Larcade, the White Dragneel. Why the fuck do you care so much? Yeah, people were thinking maybe there's some ties between them. Maybe there's a backstory there we can delve into. But no, turns out August was just talking about himself. He looked at Gildarts and Kana. He was jealous of their relationship, and he kept questioning himself in terms of like, why have I never been loved? Which, once you get to the end of this chapter, it's fucking heartbreaking for August.
Yeah.
It was actually a really emotional moment. Which, well done to Hero. This is what I want to talk to you about, Eric. Do you think it was a good twist, or do you think it was one of these other silly family ties? Because supposedly people are sick and tired of people all being related to each other in Fairy Tale. Irene and Urza, that was one people complained about. And then when Larry Caden showed up, Larcade, people were complaining about that. Oh, there's another Dragneel. What the fuck's going on? And then flip it 180. Now August is actually the child. What do you think? Was it good or was it silly?
I actually am on the side of it was not only a good but kind of clever twist.
Yeah.
And I would say I actually got more out of like these past 2-3 chapters as far as sort of like as far as storytelling and that whole reoccurring theme of family goes than I actually did with Irene and Urza.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, yeah.
Because the whole thing about Irene was as soon as she got introduced, it almost felt like her introduction was just kind of a big theory fest. Like, oh, what's her connection? She has to have some connection to Urza. She wouldn't be designed like that if it wasn't for it. And there are all these parallels.
Well,
like I said,
that was
initially.
Because when fuck, what is his name?
Who?
Nine Hat. As soon as Nine Hat is about to be fucked up by Jalal, he mentions Lady Eileen's ... referencing Urza. So everyone knew right away there was a connection. And then you see a pop-up on screen or on the panel, and you're like, oh, that looks like Urza. Well, who is it? Is it Urza? Is it Urza's mum? Is it Edless Urza? Is it Urza from a different timeline? And I was always Urza's sister.
You know,
but I was always
that
under the
was that
assumption,
too.
I was like, oh, it's just Urza's mother. It makes sense. It's Urza's mother. I remember we theorized about the scar across her stomach.
Yep.
Pretty sure that may have been her, where she had forced Urza out of her body, for all we know.
Or maybe it was the cut from her husband.
Maybe scar, or from when she was tortured. But that really doesn't matter. We're just referencing, comparing this to August and Zeref. I'm totally on board with you. I got a lot more out of this twist than
the whole thing with Irene and Urza.
Yeah.
And I think the issue is that there, as far as Irene and Urza's, I guess, whole situation go, it is tragic, but it's tragic by circumstance, and it almost felt like two separate things. Like, Urza kind of took everything a little bit too much in stride, I guess, because, like, she even says right from the beginning, like, thank you for abandoning me because now I have my real family, and that's just kind of it. There wasn't as much, I guess, sort of emotional build. I guess I kind of wanted more of that.
I did, yeah.
These past two chapters...
So just to, sorry to quick cut you off, but like
go ahead.
This, when I saw that with Urza and Irene, I was like, oh, this is Natsu and Zeref all over again. I have no emotional investment between their relationship because
they didn't have an emotional investment in their relationship.
Exactly. If they don't care, why should I? It's as simple as that.
Yeah. I mean, if anything, the backstory... Here's the thing. The tragic backstory they were given only spoke to Irene's motivation. It did not speak to their relationship. I think that's the problem.
I totally get you. I get it that, like, in this magical fantasy world that all these characters are living in, it makes sense that, like, oh, I'm gonna take the sides of these people because these are the people I've grown up with, they're my family, you're not really my family, bloody bloody blah. And there is, like, a real world crossover where, like, your parents could be the people that raised you, not who your biological parents are, that whole kind of
right
thing.
The family is who you choose. It's not like family goes beyond biology.
Yeah, so family goes beyond blood, stuff like that. So yeah, like, there's the tie over from that manga to real life, and it's like, oh, that makes sense. But besides, like, Grey and Silver, we haven't seen that where it's like, even though they haven't been in their life for that long, there's still no emotional investment whatsoever. That's one of the problems that I have. So with Zeref towards Natsu, I love his relationship towards Natsu. I think it's really interesting. It's very layered. But on the flip side, the way that Natsu reacts to Zeref, there's nothing. I thought maybe that would change after, when we delve into Natsu's heart, we look at and we see a flashback of him and Zeref and their parents sat at a family table together eating dinner. I was hoping something would trigger from that point onwards, and maybe Natsu would look at him slightly differently, but nothing changed. Nope. So that's where, like, on the that flip side, I'm just not that intrigued with how Natsu involves himself with Zeref.
Well, I think look at it this way, because this is maybe the 5th time Heroes done this. Obviously, family plays a huge part in the series, and that's something we've mentioned this numerous times in the past. This speaks to Heroes' own personal life. I'm even writing something kind of on that. It's that idea of we cultivate and we want to nurture our family because we want to exist through them. We want them to be there for us. And like we said before, family goes way beyond just who you're biologically related to. Because here's the thing. I give Natsu a little bit of leeway because even with that flashback, he has no real reason to see Zeref as his brother. And I think he's still leaving room for that, because even now we're getting a little bit, Zeref was never really 100% there. And now I think we're starting to see that a lot more, like he's kind of on the razor's edge of fully losing it.
Yeah.
And I think that might be where we see it, because we still need to see how Natsu confronts this idea of if you kill him, you're going to die too. We haven't confronted that fully yet.
We kind of did when he actually told him, and he was like, well, I don't care. I'm going to kill you anyway.
Right, but we know Natsu's not going to die at the end of this series. So I feel like he still needs to confront Zeref, not just in a physical way, but in like maybe another emotional or social way.
I'd love to see that, but I just don't think it's going to happen.
Well, maybe it will, because remember in this last chapter, what do we see Natsu? What do we see Zeref do? Seemingly kill his own son.
But
turn on his family.
But the thing was, we then get that reveal that...
but Natsu doesn't know that.
Okay, so... Well, no. At the end of the last chapter, he, blasts him, and we're like, oh my god, he's doing that to his own son, what the fuck? And then we find out this chapter, he was just a demon from the Book of Zeref. Zeref says that to everyone in the room. He projects that. So he does that, and he says, oh yeah, the only reason you have the name Dragneel is because you were a successful vessel that I created, and you're actually quite powerful. Besides that, you have no meaning to me. So right there, I'm like, wow, Zeref is pretty evil, but there's no... So the relationship doesn't mean as much now, I don't think.
I guess that's true. Actually, I do want to speak that I liked that bit, because before that, we still don't fully know. Well, when I was reading it, when he said that, I wasn't sure if that was true or if he was just in denial about, like, Larry being his actual son. Because I can kind of see that. You have this guy who's so obsessed with his past family and joining them that he can't even really see the family that's directly in front of him. Which, if you think about it, this might be the setup of Zeref's, like, completing Zeref's character arc.
It could be. It very well could be. And I would like...
Because if the whole show is supposed to be about family, and how, Fairy Tail is so strong because they stick together and they're there for each other, Zeref is kind of the antithesis of that, because he can't have a family because of his curse. And he's so obsessed with his past family that he just wants to die so he could be with them.
Well, okay, so this ties back into... People have been asking questions like, well, why didn't August say anything to Zeref? Like, why is their relationship stayed like this? August couldn't have said anything to Zeref. If he had said to Zeref, oh, I'm the son of you and Mavis, Zeref would in turn look at August and love him. We already know what happens when Zeref feels love towards someone. They die. It's the curse of contradiction. So for Zeref's well-being and for August's life, it was better off that none of them knew the relationship between each other. Which, I like that. That makes sense. I would have liked this family tie, going back to good twist or silly family tie. I would have liked if this may have been hinted at bit more foreshadowing with August earlier on.
Actually, it was, because he's been talking about this for a while.
No, the what?
The whole idea of, ever since Larry's fight with Sting and Rogue, we've actually been cutting back and forth between them, and he's like, yes, Zeref's child was never loved by his father or his mother, or Zeref's child was never loved by his father or his mother. And it's interesting because now I kind of am curious, because I feel like I'm going to reread this whole arc when it's done.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll be, maybe reading that again, knowing what's to come, will feel more like deliberate subtext.
No, yeah, because you're right there. I've forgotten about some of those bits where, you know, he has...
Because the whole time we think he's talking about Larry.
Yeah.
But maybe he kind of sees the tragedy of Larry, or maybe he's like vicariously living that tragedy through Larry, because it's like, here's a creature that so desperately wants to be Zeref's son.
Yeah.
To the point where he's willing to do anything to please him, and like he's literally crawling from the battlefield to the guild just to help him. And what's his reward? He gets a hole blown in his stomach, and he's most likely going to die. And here we have August, who's extremely calm and composed, yet he's very bothered by it.
Oh, you can tell, yeah.
He keeps questioning everything, like he understands, but it's still an anomaly to him, like, because he understands it so well. It's almost like he keeps saying, why can't I have that? Why can't that be me? Actually, maybe he'll be redeemed at the end when he finally does meet his mother.
I'm hoping that he does end up meeting Mavis, and he talks about... So the one point which is very important that he does bring up, which is another bit of foreshadowing that he had, was the child of His Majesty can only be defeated by his mother. So I think August was that confident in himself that no mage would be able to beat him, because he'd just be able to copy their magic. Obviously, Gildarts has figured him out, and he's been beaten. But
that's right.
But
that
August, maybe if he came face to face with Mavis, there was a good chance that he just stops fighting. And I'm almost guaranteeing that if he had come face to face with Mavis and he'd actually meet his mother, he'd end up just breaking down and stop fighting. And I do hope we get that moment, because this avoids now what Hero could have done is made August so powerful that no one can actually beat him, and then what beats him? He breaks down in front of Mavis. That's a Sting 2.0 right there.
Yeah, I was about to say.
Nobody wants that. So thankfully Hero, I think, has realized that. Had Gildarts strategically beat him, so now we can still have this moment with August and Mavis, but that's not how he's brought down and stopped fighting. He's already been defeated at this point, so...
Yep. And kind of when you parallel that defeat with the revelation that Father never knew who I was, because it was kind of weird. I almost thought that Larry was monologuing for some reason over August's defeat, because I wasn't getting it until that final page.
Yeah, so I knew spoilers. See, I saw some spoilers, and I knew of the twist at the end. So as I'm going through the chapter, I'm obviously reading all this monologuing as August, because I already know what's coming up. But for you, that must have been very interesting.
Well, no, because it's more like I forgot the spoilers that you posted in the chat a week ago.
Okay, yeah, I guess.
So thank God I did that, because I'm even looking through the chat now. I'm like, oh yeah, you did send literally that last screenshot. I think that's what kind of jogged my memory when I saw the translation for, like, oh, you fuck. This is why I avoid spoilers.
I tend to like reading the spoilers just because but if I know, okay, so I didn't think there was going to be much coming up this chapter. I thought it was going to be the conclusion to the Gildarts and August fight, but I didn't think there'd be a big twist at the end of it. Obviously, if I can avoid getting spoiled by big twists, I will. But it's kind of hard to do that, because, you read a bit of the spoilers trying to, get out the conclusion of a fight, and then all of a sudden you fucking find out August is the fucking Zeref's son, and I'm like, Jesus Christ. It's cool, and it's interesting, but I would have liked to have gone in there with the perspective that you had.
Well, I think it's more because I've been busy for this past week that I just forgot, so I guess I'm thankful for my lapse in stupidity right there. One of the rare moments I can be thankful for it, but yeah, this chapter, this might be one of my favorites of this entire arc.
If I go back and read some of the earlier chapters, I still do think that I much preferred the build up to this big war, because as I said, we're still gonna have a very big discussion about this, and how I'm going to rant about some of the Spriggan and how they were. That's literally my main fucking gripe of this arc, was how the Spriggan were handled comparatively from the start of the arc to the end of the arc. And that will be my main point as to why I'm so fucking pissed. But we're talking about this chapter, and this chapter was a very good chapter, I thought. So I think we're gonna leave it there. Eric, final thoughts on this chapter?
I liked it. Can we please have some more of this from now on, because it almost feels like I've been reading a different manga for the past couple of weeks.
Months.
Ugh.
You're missing all the stuff that happened with
I should trace it back to as far as...
This goes back all the way to chapter 500, Eric. This has been something that's been going on for 25 weeks.
That's
nearly half a year, Eric. We've been getting about 4 months. We've been given this bullshit. And now it seems like we're finally turning over a new leaf. But we don't know. We don't fucking know.
Just in time for the end.
Just in time for the end of the manga. I can't wait.
God.
Well,
it's sad because the happier this chapter makes me, the more depressed I end up getting. So I think I'll just leave it there.
All right. So that has been our review for Fairy Tail chapter 426. We'll try and be back soon. I do really want to do that big discussion video about the Spriggan.
Oh, we'll definitely
But
do
the
that.
thing is, we don't know if the whole character arc of all the Spriggans are all wrapped up yet. I don't want to jump the gun and be like, this guy's trash, this guy done this and this and this, and then there's a quick turnaround with something. Which I don't think that's going to happen. I think everyone's done and out of the picture now, except for a few things that still need to be talked about with August. But besides that, we can pretty much cover the Spriggan now, which is good. I would love to just have a rant about just the Spriggan 12 themselves, and then we can talk about the actual full arc itself another time, once it's actually wrapped up, and we'll review it from start to finish. But yeah, the next video you'll probably see from us is either another chapter review, the next time we get a very interesting chapter like this, or we will talk about the Spriggan 12, and have a big discussion on that.
Assuming Frankie doesn't kill us for leaving her out of this podcast.
Remember, guys, to like, comment, and subscribe. This has been Fairy Tale Thoughts, and we'll see you next time.
Peace.